Hello everyone, my name is Ciorgovean. I'm a business system analyst at Veoneer Canada. Today I'm going to show you how we at Veoneer are using Power BI, a business intelligence tool, to focus on data coming from leading to lean, to get our team involved in finding root causes and solutions to everyday problems. So a little bit about Veoneer. Veoneer is a leader in safety electronics. We are producing advanced driving assistance systems, collaborative and automated driving systems. We were founded in 2018 as a spin-off from Autoliv. We have close to 70 years of automotive safety development. We have over 8,900 employees in 13 countries. Just an overview of some of our products. We have sold to date over 6.5 million camera sensors delivered, over 38 millions of radar sensors, and over 830 million airbag ECUs and crash sensors delivered. And if you want to know more about all the cool stuff that we are doing today, please go to veoneer.com and check out our website. A little bit about me. My name is Paul Ciorgovean. I started with Autoliv, now Veoneer, in 2006 as an SMT engineer. And I continued my career in various roles. I was an NPPI engineer for radar products. I was also a customer quality engineer, and I'm currently a business system analyst with focus on continuous improvement. In my career, I was always focused on data, data analytics, and database decisions. I love to teach and empower people to use new skills. I love to learn a lot of the new technologies, a lot of the ways to work with data and make data work for you. I am living with my wife and 2 children in a small town north of Toronto. I love to travel, which I can't wait to do after all these restrictions are lifted for all this craziness that is happening around us in 2020. So leading to lean in our Canadian site, our site is located in Markham, Canada. We embraced leading to lean probably about 4 or 5 years ago as our main data tracking system. We don't just use it for maintenance work. We also use it for material downtime tracking, for quality checks, for troubleshooting reports, and lately even for 5S audits, layer process audits, and health and safety inspections. And as everyone, we're facing a data overload problem. The amount of data we have is overwhelming and is growing daily. Believe it or not, since we took in leading to lean, we wrote over 1,350,000 dispatches. That's a lot of dispatches. It is difficult to focus on trends, to zoom in on an issue and track progress of the corrective actions. I actually found this online, a very interesting chart on how the amount of data you have works in relationship to the amount of confusion you have. And it's a very linear trend. So the more data you have, the more confusion you have because you don't know how you're going to use that data to actually get to the problems, to the root causes. So how do we use all this data? We use it in problem solving, so engineers and maintenance export the data and look at Pareto items to identify top issues, trends of specific issues, monitoring corrective actions and effectiveness. We also use it for daily reporting. There's a morning meeting that all the management goes through. They look at what happened in the past 24 hours, what issues were closed from previous days, and what is getting better, what is getting worse. We also use it for monthly reporting. The same data is organized in monthly templates and monthly trends. Preparing all this data takes a lot of time and effort. Data is exported daily, weekly, and monthly, and organized as specified by various teams. Data was also exported by engineers and maintenance to follow on specific issues. There was no visibility of the data across the entire teams until at the time of the meeting. So people were preparing data, they were coming to the meetings, they were showing a lot of data on the screen, and of course, everybody gets overwhelmed. There is no time to digest the data at your own pace, to filter and to focus on the issues that you know more about and the issues that you can control. And the usual outcome of these meetings, we need to look more into that data, right? So we end up leaving and saying, yeah, interesting data, we need to look more into that. Instead of, we'll take a specific action and we'll check the effectiveness in the following days. So what's the mission? Well, the mission for us was that we have no data preparation work. Data should be available at all time and should be up to date. The data should update automatically with no human intervention. We don't want people to go and download CSV files and create pivot tables and create reports and move data from one template to another template. That's just waste. We need the ability to focus on specific problems, on lines, on areas, on shifts. And we need the ability to track effectiveness of corrective actions. About a year ago, we started using Power BI. Power BI is part of Microsoft Office 365. It inherits the Power Query module of Microsoft Excel. So if you're familiar with Microsoft Excel Power Query, getting data from external sources, Power BI is a very easy tool to learn. It's a business analytics tool based on dashboards, based on interactive dashboards. It can publish reports through Microsoft Office 365 workspaces and teams, so you can collaborate with people into small groups or larger groups, depending on the size of your project or problem. And it works on mobile devices, so various phones and tablets. Power BI can link directly to Lean to Lean, present data into an interactive dashboard, and refresh data periodically and automatically in the background. So let's look at a case study. We noticed early in 2019 that material downtime dispatches have a big impact on the time available for production. Production and warehouse teams were doing a great job reacting to the dispatches, but they lacked the big picture view. So they were having trouble seeing why things are happening over and over again. Teams are finding themselves chasing so many issues throughout the day, they were always in the firefighting mode. So we decided to focus on data related to material downtime dispatches using Power BI. So in the second part of this presentation, I'm going to take you through how to create your own dashboard, just to show you how easy it is, how simple it is to get it straight from the data that is available in Lean to Lean into a very powerful interactive dashboard. So we can start with the button Get Data, and you can see you can get data from various sources. There's databases, files, and so on. But you may be familiar with the Lean to Lean dispatches, Lean to Lean API calls. So if you put the API call straight into the browser, you will have something like this. This is an API call for dispatches that were uh, ordered by created date, limited by 1,000 records, and dispatch codes material downtime. So because you can get it on a web call, you can get the data from web. You can paste that web address right here, click OK. And next, Power BI is taking you to the Power Query portion where it says, hey, I have the data in a list, and here's all the records in that list. And next step, you will convert that data to a table. And then you'll expand the table columns and you will see all the columns available in leading to lean in the dispatch API call, expanding into a big table. There you go. So all the data is right now linked directly from leading to lean. There's certain steps. If you can see on the right side, there's the applied steps, going to the source, navigating into a table, converting to table, and then expanding the columns. And now I'm going to do some change types. I'm going to change the data types into a date type of field. And we're switching now back to the dashboard editor. So in the dashboard editor, you can see you have all those fields available for you. So you can start creating a visualization. We'll start with a stacked column chart. I'm going to just enlarge this a little bit and drag it over. So the stack color chart has an axis and some values. So for values, we're going to choose dispatch number. And automatically this is going to be the count of dispatch numbers. And you can see there's 1,000 dispatches because that's the limit of the API call. And for axis, we're going to put the start date. So the start date is already organized in year, quarter, month, and day, as you can see. And you can expand all these down to the lowest level. So you can see it by years, by quarters, by month, and even by days. But this is still a lot of data, so it's hard to focus on day-to-day activities. So I want to organize it by weeks. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to remove the quarter because I don't need it. I'm going to go back to Edit Queries, and I'm going to add a new column here. And into this column, I will create a week formula. I'll call it week number. Now the formulas here are different from Excel. This is a new language that Microsoft has called DAX. I mean, it's not new, but it's it's going to be new compared to Excel. You can use date, week of year based on started date. And there you go, you have a week number. Now this is a number. So now you can bring this into the axis instead of the started date. And now you have data organized by weeks. But actually, I'm going to bring the start date again, and I'm just going to bring the year and organize the data by year first and then by weeks. So you can see the trend like that. Next, I'm going to add a filter to this. So I'm going to filter by area code. I like to change these filters to look like little buttons. So when you click on a filter, when you click on an area, you will see that the other visualization that you created is modifying, is actually filtering the data based on that area. So just in the interest of time, because to build a dashboard like this takes a little bit of time to connect all the elements together, I will show you a demo on how we are using a dashboard, an example of a dashboard that we're using. So this is the dashboard for material downtime dispatches. We're counting the number of dispatches. We have, I just picked a random section of time here. So we have a trend, a weekly trend right here on number of dispatches per line. We have a filter for shift, a filter for reason codes, a filter for the lines, top 5 lines, a filter for part numbers, a filter for area, and some filters for specific line and specific day. So if you are an AMG, say if you're an area manager and you care about your area, you can come here and you can see, hey, how are all the areas doing? And you can see what the trend is in number of dispatches for all the areas. But say you want to filter down and go specific on your area. So if you're the manager of the radar area, you would click on that. And then you would come here and see, okay, so in my area, there are these top reason codes that I need to focus on. So you can pick the first one, click on the first one, and then you see the trend for those dispatches that are related to this first reason. And then you see the lines. So you can now see, hey, this line is actually performing worse than the others. So now you can focus on that line. You can hold down control and click on that, and that will show you just that particular line. And maybe you put some actions in place for that line, so you can actually see things are getting better on that line. Now let's say that you actually are a supervisor. So you're coming to, I'm just going to clear all the filters here. So you're coming to area ECU2 and you are a night shift supervisor. So if you click on night here, you see, hey, this is the performance during my night shift. So this is my top issue during the shift. These are the lines that I have to focus on during my shift. But I want to see how are the other shifts performing. These are all three shifts together. Well, how is the day shift performing? Just like that. How's the afternoon shift performing? Just like that. How are all the three shifts performing all together? Just like that. So this way you can kind of zoom in and zoom out on the data that you can focus on, the data that you care about, the data that you can take action on. Let me take you back to the background of how this report is produced. So if we go back to the query editor, you can see that I have two queries right here. I have a list of last 1,000 material downtime dispatches, and I also have a list of reason codes. So what I do is I get through a web query that I showed you, I get the material downtime dispatches. I pull all the records here, and then I apply some steps. I convert to a table, I expand the columns, I change some types, I add some custom columns, I add some conditional columns, which are, for example, in this case, is the shift. So I'm adding a shift column right there. So I'm applying all these steps that you see right here on the right-hand side. And what happens is when I hit refresh, the Power BI will go back to the source and will apply all those steps to the new set of data. So if I hit refresh tomorrow, it's going to go back and get the last 1,000 dispatches. It's going to apply all these steps, and we're going to end up with a data set that looks exactly like the one that I expect. And for the reason codes, because reason codes is a different API call, I am pulling all those reason codes in a different table. And what I do, there is a relationship setup here, which is very typical to a database setup, where you would go and you would link the reason in the list of dispatches with the reason code ID so that you can get the description of the reason code and so on. So that's kind of the background, the database background that help produce this. Now, once you're done with your report, you can hit publish. So when you hit publish, you can publish to various workspaces. You can publish in Teams as a tab so that all the people in that team would be able to see it. You can publish it on a SharePoint site as an embedded object into that SharePoint site, or you can publish it on the web. Now, once you published it on the web, there's another component right here on the web service of Power BI where you can schedule a data refresh. So with this, you can schedule a daily refresh at specific hours. There are 8 time slots that you can use, so that your report will actually go and refresh the data, apply all those steps, and republish the updated dashboard at the time frame that you are setting up here. So this makes it completely maintenance free because you are setting up the report, you are publishing it in a team, you are setting up a schedule for refresh, and that will make the data available to your team on a set time, 8 times 8 slots a day for this, in this case, or you can set up a weekly refresh schedule, and that will make it available to your team. So coming back to this case study, we noticed that the top material downtime issues in 2019 had the first two items on the Pareto for housings and bare PCBs. As you can see, that takes like a big chunk of all the other items. So for housings, we started using Power BI with the team around February, March timeframe. We noticed some issues. We noticed the first Pareto bar being housing, so we noticed some issues with the way the process was designed of delivering and storing housings closer to the line. So we had to put some actions in place that took a little while to be implemented. We had to come up with a new process for delivery and storage of the housings closer to the line. So these actions only came into place maybe mid-year, around July, August timeframe during our shutdown. After that, we noticed a 47% reduction in the number of dispatches related to housings. So that was pretty good. But then we looked at the second Pareto item, which was bare PCBs. So some issues like the bare PCBs were very obvious, and there were some very obvious actions that we could put in place, immediate actions. And we noticed an 85% reduction of the number of dispatches for bare PCBs alone. And when we look at the overall, we had significant improvements in the number of dispatches. So the team got into a habit to use the Power BI dashboard to monitor the performance during the shift, but also to zoom out and look at the overall issues to the top Pareto bars. So overall, we were managed to achieve a 60% reduction in number of dispatches throughout the year, closer to the end of 2019. But what's even more dramatic was the downtime reduction. So we saw significant improvement in downtime minutes, an 82% reduction of downtime related to material downtime. So that proves that once you have the way of looking at the data that affects your team's performance, you are motivated to take action. Of course, there are some exceptions here and there, but an overall 82% reduction is huge. And that's only because the team was able to just focus on their own data, the data that they can control, the data that they have to deal with every day, and they were able to take action. And yes, there are some limitations with this method. So not everything can be retrieved through API only. And one example for that is dispatch notes. So dispatch notes are not in the dispatch API. There is another API specific for dispatch notes. And the link between those two APIs is a dispatch ID, but there's a limitation on how many records can be pulled for each API call. Another good link for that would be a dispatch code, for example, so that the notes API can pull only the notes for that specific dispatch type. So for cases like this, we have to use a custom programming that can work as workarounds to retrieve the data and filter it and maybe save it into a local database. Another limitation is the 1,000 or 2,000 records on the API. So some of the reports that we're using, they do require more than 1,000 records to see the big picture. So you'll have to do multiple requests in some cases, and then you have to merge the data in Power BI. So that becomes a little bit more difficult than to do a straight API call, but that is one of the limitations. So how can this work even better? We can have more API filtering. So see previous example, we could filter the notes API by dispatch type. And there's many other examples like that, like dispatch questions, checklists, etc. Or we could have a data warehouse specific for query work with larger limits. Like we could pull maybe 10,000 records or 100,000 records at a time. Or we could have a dedicated Power BI connector. So that's a dedicated L2L data source where users can connect to specific tables with specific parameters through a graphical user interface. So my conclusion through all this is that it's important to give your teams the tools to get and to filter the data at their own pace. Teams are empowered to act on the data and may bring up new points of view. You need to offer your teams a way to focus on the data that they can have an impact over. You can just give them, hey, there's 1,350,000 dispatches, go and filter through that data. You have to give them a way to just focus on the data that they can impact. The example that I gave in the case study, the warehouse team was all over this Power BI dashboard because it was only focused on material downtime. It will just filter the world out and will just focus on that. And they saw that as a great tool. They took advantage of that tool and they ran with it, and they achieved amazing improvements. You need to offer the teams a way to see the big picture, but also give them ways to zoom into specific problems or areas of interest. If you're a supervisor in a night shift, you care about your shift performance, but you also should be able to zoom out and see, hey, what is this doing in the big picture? Like, is my performance better than other teams? Are other teams and other shifts seeing the same things that I'm seeing? Are these issues caused by a specific line, by a specific shift, and so on? And you have to teach the teams to get their own data, as they may have different ideas on what to focus on. Power BI gave us the tools to focus on the data and make a difference.